I've talked to a number of well-meaning youth baseball coaches through the years, and their answer almost always is, well, I never saw anybody get hurt on my watch. Well, it's one of those things, you may not have seen it, but it saw you. And these kids, 15, 16, 17, even 20, 21, 22, when they finally break down, you can go back, as you see on this x-ray, and you can relate when they got hurt, usually back to when they were real vulnerable and young, 10, 11, 12, 13 years of age. That little ossification occurred many years ago in this 15-year-old. When it occurred, it was probably not even thought much of. The kid may have been sore for a few days. It was just a little fleck where the ligament pulled partially off. And then through the years, it grew into this English pea size, and it becomes a weak link in the ligament, and the next thing you know, the ligament pulls apart where the ossification is. But it didn't occur at age 15. It initially occurred unbeknownst to the parents, to the coach, whoever, when he was probably about 11 or 12. We also tried to figure out and make recommendations as to when they could. These pitches became more sophisticated from a neuromuscular standpoint as you got older. And of course, we recommended that the fastball and the changeup be the two primary pitches. And as you see later, the curveball came in at about age 14. Now, these other pitches, even forkballs and splitters and screwballs, are real difficult pitches. And we still don't know when a particular player should be able to do that. It depends on their neuromuscular ability to do it and how well they're coached. So, summary of our findings, to make this very simple, these are the safeguard recommendations, basically. Breaking pitches should not be thrown in competition until bones have matured, that is, as indicated by puberty. And the correct answer to give a coach or parent is, in quote, not until the player has started to shave. And that comes from Joe Chandler, my good friend who's a team physician who's worked with us, takes care of the Atlanta Braves. The fact that a kid is shaving means he's gone through puberty and his bone structure is matured.
But if they start to throw 50 pitches to 75 pitches in a game, they had, it's hard to tell on the graph, but that looks like maybe about 1.2. So they had about a 20% chance higher of having elbow or shoulder pain if they throw 50 to 75 pitches than if they only threw less pitches. Look at this. If they threw up to 99 pitches, now they have about a 50% increased chance of having elbow or shoulder pain. How about pitches? How about game pitches in a season? Dr. Andrews was talking about pitching multiple games and how many times a week per season. We kept track of how many pitches they had done in the season so far, and compared to the first 200 pitches they threw in a season, when they threw about 200 to 400 pitches per season, it was almost twice as high a chance they were going to hurt their elbow or shoulder in that second 200 pitches as in the first 200 pitches. Then 2 or 3 times as much if they throw 400 to 600 pitches. And look at these numbers going up. So basically, if you start to throw 600 pitches per game, these are, remember, 9 to 14-year-old kids. Not 600 to 800 pitches, game pitches in a season, in a spring season. It's about 3 times as likely that kid's going to have an elbow or shoulder pain as the kid who threw very little. And check this out. This is the strongest correlation we've seen in any research, pretty much. The kids who said, yes, I regularly stayed in the game after my point of being tired, they were 3,600% as likely to end up having surgery as staying healthy in the field. 3,600%. So if you had a son and you asked him, if I asked him, did you normally pitch after the point of being tired, stay in the game? Well, yeah, I'm a good pitcher. My coach said stay in. I give you 36 to 1 odds that he's going to have surgery by the time he's 20 compared to a kid who's not having surgery. That's a mess, okay? The other issue is breaking pitches, curveballs. Dr. Andrews just said, he showed an x-ray also, don't throw a curveball until your growth plate is closed. That's what we've been saying, and of course, not every kid has x-rays done to see if the growth plate. So basically a good guideline is when they're old enough to start to shave, it's probably when their bones have started to close up and mature. But what does the science say? Dr. Chandler, who Dr. Andrews already mentioned, he did a survey. He asked 100 pitchers who were in the Atlanta Braves organization, and not all on the major league team, they're the minor leaguers, etc. And he asked them, how old were you? You know, you made it to the top of the game. How old were you when you started throwing a curveball, a fastball? And look at this. The pitchers who were playing pro ball were not the kids who were throwing curveballs at 10 years old. They started throwing curveballs in games at 14 years old, on average, and fastballs at 10 years old. Then Dr. Chandler did something smart. He asked them, okay, you're a 25-year-old pitcher. Based on the road you've been on, how old would you let your own son throw pitches? And they said they would not let their own kids throw a curveball until they're 15 years old. That was on average. So that says something there. But let's go back and look at the field data. Again, that field data where we studied the kids, we also asked them what kind of pitches they threw. And this chart over here shows, again, that odds ratio type of thing. If a fastball that's supposed to go up to line 1 there, if a fastball is the baseline, you can see the kids who throw the curveball is above the 1 line, and it's about 1.5. So basically, the kids who threw a curveball had a slight increased risk of hurting their elbow or shoulder. Kids who threw a slider in this young group had a very high increased risk. So this data points to the fact that the kids who are throwing curveballs probably do have an increased risk of hurting themselves compared to the kids who threw fastball only or fastball changeup. And I don't really want to bring up a lot of numbers, but just to give you a feel for what 7,500 degrees per second is, what I'm saying is if your arm's here and you go at 7,500 degrees per second forward, what that means that your shoulder is just for a fraction of a second. But if you went that fast for just 1 second, your arm would go around 20 times, make 20 foot loops in 1 second. So that's how fast pitchers' arms are moving fast. We don't recommend you do it for 1 full second, by the way.
But across the country, the sports medicine physicians involved in baseball injuries all agree that there's a dramatic escalation of these injuries. So pitchers and catchers are the ones really getting hurt. The next risk factor we studied in this group was early breaking pitches. 67% of them threw early breaking pitches. They threw breaking pitches in competition before the recommended age. The problem is not maybe necessarily when they throw breaking pitches, but it's do they have enough neuromuscular control and are they good enough athletes to be able to throw a more complicated pitch? We have nothing against curveballs, believe me. And of course now we have the recommended ages to start these different pitches as you see in this slide. So that's event overuse. I had another assistant coach who was a daddy that brought me a kid this year who was 16 years old, high school. The kid tore his ligament in a high school game. And the daddy was sitting on the bench, but the head coach was calling the pitches. And the head coach called 35 curveballs in a row. And then he tore his ligament. Early breaking pitches then, of course, are a problem. And then, so the two things come to mind right away. Those are your best pitchers, right? They're also the kids that are going to be overused. They're the ones that are going to have event overuse, seasonal overuse. So what's happening to our best pitchers? They have a higher risk factor to get hurt, never make it to college. If you look at the graph here, you'll see at 80 miles per hour, the ligament redlines. In other words, you're reaching its maximum strength potential in this age group at about 80 miles per hour. And anything you throw above that, if your mechanics are off, if you didn't warm up good, it's a cold night, or you're fatigued particularly, what happens? You tear your ligament. Remember, baseball is a developmental sport. Now, the ligament gets stronger, the bones get stronger, the muscles get stronger. As you develop, you get older, you have to throw it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. That's why young kids throwing 80 plus miles per hour are vulnerable, though, because their ligament hadn't developed as much as their velocity has developed. So at 80 miles per hour, the forces across the ulnar collateral ligament is near red line to tear the ligament.